First contact gone wrong. The mining outpost on Kepler 186 wasn't much to look at. Just a collection of prefab habitats and industrial equipment scattered across the rust-colored landscape. But to director Isabella Martinez, it represented humanity's first successful extrasolar colony. She stood at the observation dome, watching the dual moons rise over the horizon, while sipping her synthetic coffee. Director, we're picking up unusual readings from the outer system. Lieutenant James Harrison's voice crackled through her comm unit. Multiple objects decelerating from FTL speeds. Isabella felt her heart rate quicken. First contact. They had protocols for this, endless simulations and training scenarios. But nothing could truly prepare humanity for its first encounter with an alien civilization. Implement First Contact Protocol Alpha, she ordered, her voice steady despite her racing thoughts. Alert Earth Command and begin preparations for diplomatic reception. The objects resolved into ships, massive crystalline structures that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. They moved with an otherworldly grace that made Earth's most advanced vessels look clumsy in comparison. The largest was easily 5 kilometers long, dwarfing anything humanity had ever built. They're broadcasting something, Harrison reported. Well, you should hear this yourself. The sound that filled the command center wasn't exactly language, more like crystalline chimes arranged in complex patterns. But somehow, Isabella understood the meaning. Submit or perish. That's not very diplomatic, she muttered, then switched to the colony-wide channel. All personnel, battle stations. This is not a drill. Repeat. This is not a drill. The Voidborn, as they would later be known, didn't wait for a response. The first plasma bolt struck the colony's shield generators, overwhelming them instantly. Isabella watched in horror as secondary explosions rippled through the power grid. Get everyone to the emergency shelters, she ordered, rushing to the command console. Harrison, upload all our data to the quantum relay. Earth needs to know what's happening here. The colony's defensive turrets, designed more for asteroid deflection than warfare, returned fire, their railgun slugs harmlessly dissipating against the alien ship's energy fields. More plasma bolts rained down, methodically destroying key infrastructure. Director, the civilian bunkers are sealed, Harrison reported. But our weapons aren't even scratching their shields. We can't hold them off. Isabella nodded grimly. We're not trying to win, Lieutenant. We're buying time. She activated the colony's final defense protocol, a series of nuclear mining charges buried throughout the nearby asteroid field. Let's show them humans don't go quietly. The charges detonated in sequence, creating a cascading wave of debris that forced the alien ships to adjust their positions. It wasn't much, but it gave the emergency evacuation shuttles precious seconds to launch. Quantum relay transmission complete, Harrison announced, but they're targeting the launchers. Isabella watched the tactical display as dots representing evacuation shuttles winked out one by one. But a few, just a few, managed to break through, carrying with them the warning Earth would need. The command center shook as another blast struck nearby. Warning lights flashed across every console as systems failed cascade. Through the observation dome, Isabella could see more ships emerging from FTL, their crystalline forms blocking out the stars. It's been an honor, Lieutenant, she said, initiating the station's self-destruct sequence. The Voidborn would learn that humans didn't surrender, not even in the face of impossible odds. The last transmission from Kepler 186 was a massive electromagnetic pulse that temporarily blinded the alien sensors. When they could see again, the mining colony was gone, reduced to superheated plasma. But they had achieved their goal. Humanity now knew it wasn't alone in the universe, and that the universe was hostile. Back on Earth, the warning from Kepler 186f triggered an immediate response. Military commanders were awakened in the middle of the night, defense platforms were activated, and humanity's first interstellar war began with a brutal revelation. They were no longer alone, and their first neighbors had come not in peace, but with demands for submission. Admiral David Chen stood before the United Earth Defense Council, his holographic presentation showing the final moments of the Kepler 186 colony. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said gravely, "we are at war. Director Martinez and her people bought us valuable intelligence with their lives. We now know our enemy's capabilities, their tactics, and most importantly, their intentions." The room was silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had barely established its first extrasolar colonies, and now they faced an adversary of unknown power and hostile intent. The Voidborn, as we're calling them, clearly expected us to submit immediately, Chen continued. Director Martinez's final act of defiance seems to have confused them. They weren't expecting resistance. We can use that. They may have superior technology, but they don't understand human determination. The Defense Council quickly approved a wartime production schedule. Civilian shipyards were converted for military use, defense platforms were upgraded, and humanity prepared for a war they never wanted but couldn't avoid. As the first reports reached the public, panic gave way to resolve. Humanity had dreamed of first contact, but not like this. Yet in the face of extinction, they would show the universe why humans didn't fear the fight. The war had begun, and with it, humanity's greatest test. The Voidborn would learn that demanding submission from humans was their first, and possibly last, mistake. The fall of Titan Base. Commander Raj Patel had always thought Titan's orange haze made for beautiful sunsets, but today that same haze concealed an approaching nightmare. From his command post in Titan Base Alpha, he watched the defense radar paint an increasingly grim picture as Voidborn ships emerged from Saturn's rings. "Multiple contacts, sir," Senior Tech Zara Wilson reported, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "At least 15 capital ships, and, Christ, 40 smaller vessels. They're using the rings for cover." Titan Base wasn't supposed to be a fortress. Built as a research station and refueling depot, its defenses had been hastily upgraded after the Kepler 186 incident. Now it would have to become humanity's first real line of defense against the Voidborn advance. "Status of the civilian evacuation?" Raj asked, keeping his voice steady for the crew's benefit. "Last transport clearing atmosphere now," Wilson confirmed. "But the Voidborn will be in range before they can reach the jump point." Raj nodded grimly. "Then we give them something else to shoot at. Launch all drones. Combat pattern Delta." Hundreds of automated drones burst from hidden silos across Titan's surface. They were mining units repurposed as weapons platforms. Not elegant, but effective. The Voidborn response was immediate and devastating, their crystalline ships firing precise energy beams that swatted drones from the sky. But the drones had served their purpose. While the Voidborn were occupied, the civilian transports slipped past their perimeter, making the jump to safety. Now came the hard part. "All personnel to battle stations," Raj ordered. "Activate the mass driver." The mass driver was humanity's answer to Voidborn energy weapons, a massive electromagnetic cannon that used Titan's low gravity to hurl projectiles at relativistic speeds. It wasn't elegant technology, but that was the point. The Voidborn, for all their advanced technology, seemed to struggle with humanity's primitive solutions. The first shot from the mass driver caught a Voidborn cruiser off guard. The projectile, a simple tungsten rod, punched through its energy shields and shattered its crystalline hull. The explosion lit up Titan's sky like a second sun. "Direct hit." Wilson cheered, but her celebration was short-lived. The Voidborn response was immediate and overwhelming. Energy beams lanced down from orbit, targeting the mass driver's exposed barrel. The weapon's cooling systems overloaded, forcing an emergency shutdown. But Raj had anticipated this. "Activate defense pattern Echo," he commanded. "Show them what we learned from Kepler." Across Titan's surface, what appeared to be defense turrets began to move. But they weren't weapons at all. They were holograms projected by cloaked emitters. The real weapons were hidden underground, using Titan's thick atmosphere to mask their thermal signatures. The Voidborn fell for it, wasting precious energy destroying decoys, while the base's actual defenses remained intact. It was a lesson learned from Kepler 186f. The aliens relied too heavily on energy readings and predictable patterns. "Sir," Wilson's voice was tense. "They're launching ground forces. Dropships incoming." This was the moment Raj had been dreading. Direct combat with Voidborn troops. The few images from Kepler showed them as towering crystalline figures, nearly 3 meters tall. But humanity had prepared for this too. "Activate the resonators," he ordered. The resonators were another primitive solution, devices that emitted specific frequencies that disrupted the crystalline structure of Voidborn technology. They weren't powerful enough to affect their capital ships, but against ground troops. The first wave of Voidborn soldiers literally shattered as they landed, their crystalline forms unable to withstand the resonating frequencies. The second wave adapted, generating protective fields, but it cost them mobility and firepower. "They're pulling back the dropships," Wilson reported, "but the orbital bombardment is intensifying." Raj watched as sections of the base disappeared under plasma fire. They were buying time, but at a terrible cost. The question was, time for what? The answer came 6 hours into the battle. A message from Earth Command. "Operation Thunderstrike is go." "Well done, Titan Base." Raj allowed himself a small smile. While the Voidborn were focused on Titan, the real counterattack would come from an entirely different direction. His people had played their part. "Begin final evacuation," he ordered. "Rig everything to blow and get to the escape pods." "Sir," Wilson hesitated. "The command center controls have been damaged. Someone has to stay to trigger the detonation." Raj put a hand on her shoulder. "Get to your pod, Senior Tech." "That's an order." As the last of his crew evacuated, Raj watched the Voidborn ships descend through Titan's atmosphere. They'd probably thought they were winning. They didn't understand that humans never measured victory by who held the ground at the end. When the base's fusion reactors detonated, the explosion was visible from Saturn's orbit. The electromagnetic pulse disrupted Voidborn systems across the sector, creating a blind spot that Earth's forces would exploit in Operation Thunderstrike. The fall of Titan Base, as it came to be known, marked a turning point in the war. The Voidborn had won the battle but learned a costly lesson. Humans didn't fear death, and they never fought according to expectations. It was a lesson they would learn again and again as the war continued. In the debris field that was once Titan Base, a single crystalline shard floated among the wreckage. Within its lattice structure, it recorded a simple message for the Voidborn hierarchy. "These humans are not like the others. They do not submit. They do not surrender. They adapt." Operation Thunderstrike. Admiral Yuki Tanaka stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, watching the holographic display as hundreds of ships emerged from FTL near Jupiter's orbit. To any Voidborn sensors, they would appear to be a massive assault fleet. Exactly what the enemy expected after the fall of Titan Base. But appearances could be deceiving. "All ships reporting in," her XO, Commander Nathan O'Reilly, announced. "The holograms are holding stable. Voidborn long-range sensors are tracking us exactly as predicted." Yuki nodded, suppressing a smile. After studying Voidborn tactics for months, they had discovered something fascinating. The aliens relied almost exclusively on energy signatures and quantum readings. They never seemed to consider that these could be faked. "Signal the real fleet," she ordered. "Begin Phase 2. While the holographic fleet drew Voidborn attention near Jupiter, the actual human strike force was taking a much riskier approach, using the sun's electromagnetic interference as cover. 300 ships, running dark with minimal power, were about to execute the largest coordinated strike in human history. "Incoming transmission from Admiral Hassan's group," O'Reilly reported. "They're in position behind Saturn's magnetic field, ready to begin their run." Operation Thunderstrike wasn't just one attack, it was three, carefully coordinated to exploit everything they'd learned about void-born weaknesses. The aliens' technological superiority had made them predictable. They never expected inferior species to attempt anything truly innovative. "Signal all ships," Yuki commanded. "Execute Phase 3. The holographic fleet near Jupiter suddenly dispersed, creating sensor chaos that the Voidborn would have to investigate. Meanwhile, Hassan's group accelerated from behind Saturn, their ships modified with crystalline plating salvaged from destroyed Voidborn vessels. To enemy sensors, they would appear as their own ships, at least briefly. But the real surprise was approaching from the sun. "Solar Fleet reporting ready," O'Reilly announced. "They've achieved maximum charge." The Solar Fleet had spent weeks skimming the sun's corona, their ships' experimental shields collecting solar plasma. Now they carried enough energy to match void-born weapons for one massive burst. "All ships, weapons-free," Yuki ordered. "Show them what humanity can do." The battle unfolded like a symphony of destruction. The Solar Fleet emerged from the sun's corona, their accumulated plasma cutting through void-born shields designed to deflect focused energy weapons. Hassan's disguised ships struck from behind, using modified resonators that turned the aliens' crystalline hulls against them. And Yuki's holographic fleet, it disappeared completely, only to reappear inside the Voidborn formation when they activated their real ship's engines. The aliens had been surrounded by actual human vessels the entire time, hidden by the very sensor readings they trusted so completely. "Multiple direct hits," O'Reilly reported, excitement breaking through his professional demeanor. "Their command ship is breaking apart." The Voidborn response was chaos. Their rigid command structure, so effective against conventional attacks, couldn't adapt to being hit from three directions by three different strategies simultaneously. Ships fired on their own allies, fooled by the crystalline disguises. Others overloaded their shields trying to defend against the solar plasma. But the aliens weren't defeated easily. A group of their destroyers managed to coordinate, their combined energy beams slicing through several human vessels. The space around Jupiter lit up with explosions as ships from both sides were torn apart. "Hassan's group is taking heavy losses," O'Reilly reported grimly. "The disguises aren't holding anymore." Yuki had expected this. The Voidborn would adapt. They always did. But adaptation took time, and time was what Operation Thunderstrike needed to achieve its real objective. "Signal the mining ships," she ordered. "Begin nuclear detonation sequence." During the weeks of preparation, automated mining ships had quietly positioned thousands of nuclear devices throughout the battlefield, disguised as debris from previous battles. Now they detonated in sequence, creating an electromagnetic pulse wave that rippled through space. The Voidborn ships, their systems overloaded by the multiple attacks, couldn't compensate fast enough. Their crystalline structures resonated with the pulse waves, creating cascading failures throughout their fleet. "Enemy fleet is retreating," O'Reilly announced, confirming, "Yes, they're making emergency FTL jumps. We did it." But Yuki wasn't celebrating yet. She studied the casualty reports scrolling across her display. The victory had cost them dearly. Nearly 40% of their ships were destroyed or disabled. But they had achieved something unprecedented. Humanity's first major victory against the Voidborn. More importantly, they had shattered the aliens' aura of invincibility. The Voidborn weren't unbeatable. They were just advanced, and advancement often bred complacency. "Send word to Earth Command," she ordered. "Operation Thunderstrike successful. But the Voidborn will adapt. We need to be ready for their response." As the surviving ships regrouped, Yuki watched Jupiter's swirling clouds through the viewscreen. Humanity had bloodied the Voidborn's nose, showing them that technological superiority wasn't everything. But she knew this was just the beginning. The real test would be what came next, after the aliens realized they were in a real fight against an enemy that didn't play by their rules. The war was far from over, but humanity had shown they could do more than just survive. they could win. The Ghost Fleet. No one took Captain Fatima Rahman seriously when she first proposed converting civilian cargo ships into stealth combat vessels. The military brass laughed at the idea of using retrofitted freighters against void-borne warships. But after Operation Thunderstrike, with military shipyards stretched thin, desperate times called for innovative measures. Now, 6 months later, Fatima stood on the bridge of the modified cargo vessel, MCV, Night Shadow, formerly the bulk freighter Pacific Trader, watching her ragtag fleet of 30 ships prepare for another raid. Void-borne supply convoy detected on projected course, reported her tactical officer, Viktor Petrov, a former merchant marine who'd lost his family in the attack on Titan. 6 escort ships, 12 cargo vessels. Standard crystalline configuration. Fatima studied the sensor readings. After Operation Thunderstrike, the Voidborn had adapted their tactics, protecting their supply lines with heavy escorts. But they still hadn't figured out how to detect ships running completely dark. "Signal the fleet," she ordered. "Execute Shadow Protocol." Throughout her fleet, ships killed their power systems, operating on minimal life support and momentum alone. The Voidborn's energy-based sensors would see nothing but space debris, which was exactly what most of these ships looked like. The Ghost Fleet, as they'd become known, operated on principles that would have horrified conventional naval officers. Their ships were ugly, improvised things. Cargo holds had been converted into missile bays. Civilian power plants were modified to run in short, devastating bursts. Even their weapons were unconventional, many salvaged from mining operations or cobbled together from industrial equipment. "Convoy entering optimal range," Victor announced. "All ships report ready." Fatima took a deep breath. "Begin the dance." The Ghost Fleet's attacks were called dances because of their choreographed nature. Each ship had a specific role, timed to the second. They couldn't match Voidborn technology, so they had to rely on perfect coordination. The first wave came from converted mining ships, now dubbed rockbreakers. They launched clouds of magnetized ore, simple chunks of metal that played havoc with Voidborn sensors. The crystalline escort ships immediately began firing at the debris, their energy weapons creating a spectacular-like show. "Second phase, mark," Fatima ordered. Modified tanker ships, their holds filled with specialized chemicals, released clouds of reactive gas. When the Voidborn's energy weapons fired through these clouds, they created chain reactions that temporarily blinded their sensitive sensors. The real attack came from ships like the Night Shadow, former cargo vessels, stripped down and rebuilt for speed and stealth, carrying weapons specifically designed to exploit Voidborn weaknesses. "All ships, weapons-free," Fatima commanded. "Show them why they call us ghosts." The Ghost Fleet emerged from darkness like avenging spirits. Missiles loaded with resonator warheads struck the escort ships' crystalline hulls, creating sympathetic vibrations that shattered their structures. Improvised mass drivers, literally rebuilt mining equipment, fired streams of metallic projectiles that overwhelmed the aliens' energy shields through sheer volume. "Escort ships breaking formation," Victor reported. "Their targeting systems are compromised." Fatima allowed herself a grim smile. The Voidborn never seemed to learn. They relied too heavily on their advanced technology, never expecting attacks based on simple physics and chemistry. "Begin Phase 3, she ordered. "Target the cargo ships." The Ghost Fleet's true purpose wasn't just disruption, it was acquisition. Humanity needed Voidborn technology to study, to understand, to adapt. Each raid was an opportunity to capture alien materials and equipment. Modified grappling systems, originally designed for asteroid mining, latched onto the cargo vessels. Boarding teams in retrofitted environmental suits cut their way through crystalline hulls using mining lasers and industrial plasma cutters. But the Voidborn weren't finished. 2 escort ships managed to clear their sensors, their energy weapons slicing through 3 Ghost Fleet vessels like paper. The space around them lit up with secondary explosions as captured cargo ships detonated their self-destruct systems. "We've lost the Starcatcher and Shadow's Edge," Victor reported tensely. Moonweaver is heavily damaged. Fatima nodded grimly. Every raid cost lives. But they couldn't stop. Not when each captured cargo ship provided invaluable intelligence and resources. Begin withdrawal sequence, she ordered. Get our people out. The Ghost Fleet's retreat was as choreographed as their attack. Ships vanished into darkness one by one, leaving behind clouds of debris and sensor-jamming materials. The captured cargo vessels, their crystalline engines disabled and replaced with human drives, disappeared with them. Hours later, safely hidden in the Kuiper Belt, Fatima reviewed the raid's results. They'd lost 4 ships and 37 crew members, but captured 3 void-borne cargo vessels and their precious contents. Engineering reports the cargo holds contained crystalline matrix processors, Victor reported. And something new, some kind of quantum communication devices. Research division will be excited. Fatima stared at the casualty list on her display. Each name represented someone who'd volunteered for this dangerous duty, knowing the odds. The Ghost Fleet attracted a certain type, those who'd lost everything to the Voidborn and wanted to strike back any way they could. Send word to command, she ordered. Operation successful. Request replacement crews and vessels for next raid. As her fleet underwent repairs, hidden among the ice and rock of the outer solar system, Fatima knew the Voidborn would eventually adapt to their tactics. But by then, humanity would have learned enough from their stolen technology to develop new strategies, new weapons, new ways to fight. That was the real power of the Ghost Fleet. Not just the raids themselves, but what humanity learned from each success. The Voidborn might have superior technology, but humans had something they didn't. The ability to improvise, to adapt, to turn anything into a weapon when necessary. And somewhere out there, Voidborn commanders were learning to fear the shadows between the stars, where human ingenuity lurked, waiting to strike again. Dawn of recognition. The battle for Alpha Centauri began not with a bang, but with silence. Admiral Teresa Mendoza stood on the bridge of the UES Prometheus, humanity's first true match for Voidborn technology, watching as her combined fleet dropped out of FTL on the edge of humanity's nearest stellar neighbor. 3 years of war had changed everything. The Prometheus itself was a hybrid of human and Voidborn technology, its crystalline reinforced hull housing both energy weapons and conventional mass drivers. Its crew had learned to think like both humans and their alien adversaries. Voidborn fleet detected, announced Fleet Intelligence Officer Kai Zhao. Massive force. At least 300 capital ships. They'd committed their entire remaining force to this system. Teresa nodded. Intelligence suggested the Voidborn had something vital hidden in Alpha Centauri, something worth defending with everything they had left. The Ghost Fleet's raids had revealed fragments of information, hints of a deeper purpose behind the war. All ships, battle formation Delta, she ordered. Begin the approach. The human fleet moved with practiced precision. Ghost Fleet vessels darted through the darkness, running silent. Conventional warships formed a solid wall of firepower. And in the center, the new hybrid ships like Prometheus represented humanity's rapid technological evolution. Enemy fleet is holding position, Kai reported, surprise evident in his voice. They're broadcasting something. It's different from their usual communications. Teresa felt a chill run down her spine. After 3 years of war, they'd never seen the Voidborn do anything but attack. Put it through. The sound that filled the bridge wasn't the usual crystalline chimes of Voidborn communication. It was something new, a harmony that seemed to bridge the gap between human and alien language. They're requesting dialogue. Kai translated, his eyes wide. They want to talk. For a moment, Teresa considered it might be a trap, but something felt different. The Voidborn fleet's formation wasn't aggressive. It was protective, defending something behind them. Send our response, she ordered. We'll talk. The meeting took place in neutral space between the fleets. Teresa's shuttle approached a massive void-borne vessel that had transformed its crystalline structure into a temporary meeting chamber. As she stepped inside, she finally saw what the void-borne had been protecting. It wasn't a weapon. It was a nursery. Crystalline structures housed thousands of developing void-borne entities, each one vibrating with potential life. And they were dying. The void-borne leader, a towering crystalline figure that somehow conveyed both authority and desperation, explained through the new translation harmonics. Their species was facing extinction. A quantum degradation in their crystalline structure was causing each generation to become more unstable. They had attacked humanity not out of malice, but desperation. Earth's system contained unique elements they believed could stabilize their crystalline matrices. They had assumed humans, like other species they'd encountered, would submit to their superior technology. They hadn't expected resistance, hadn't expected innovation, hadn't expected humans to turn their own technology against them. "You could have asked for help," Teresa said, watching the dying nursery pulse with fading light. "Humanity has a long history of solving seemingly impossible problems." The void-borne leader's crystalline surface rippled, their equivalent of bitter laughter. They had never considered asking. Their technological superiority had become cultural arrogance. They had forgotten how to cooperate, how to learn from others. But humans had shown them something new. Every defeat, every adaptation, every improvised weapon had demonstrated a creativity they had lost. The Ghost Fleet's raids hadn't just stolen technology. They had stolen hope, showing the Voidborn that their way wasn't the only way. "We can help you," Teresa offered. "But the war ends now, and we work together as equals." The agreement that followed changed both species forever. Human scientists worked alongside Voidborn crystalline masters, combining human ingenuity with alien knowledge. The nursery's deterioration was halted using principles derived from Earth's unique geological conditions. More importantly, both species learned from each other. The Voidborn rediscovered the value of creativity and adaptation. Humans gained understanding of technologies they had only begun to grasp. Years later, Teresa stood in the observation dome of the new Alpha Centauri research station, watching human and Voidborn ships patrol together. The war had cost millions of lives, but it had ultimately saved two species, one from physical extinction, the other from technological stagnation. "The latest stabilization tests are successful," Kai reported, now serving as chief liaison officer. "The new generation is showing no signs of degradation." Teresa nodded, watching a group of human children touring the station with a Voidborn guide. The crystalline being was showing them how to create simple harmonics while they taught it human songs. The moment the Voidborn realized humans didn't fear the fight had become the moment they learned to respect humanity. But the moment humans showed mercy had become the moment they learned to understand each other. The war had begun with a demand for submission. It had ended with a lesson in cooperation that would reshape the galaxy. Sometimes, Teresa reflected, the greatest victories come not from fighting, but from knowing when to stop. The stars seemed brighter somehow, filled with new possibilities as humanity and the Voidborn ventured out together, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them in the vast unknown.